One of my favorite sayings that I always repeat to myself, I always do this whenever I'm doing anything. I have little sentences in my head that I repeat to myself. And in trading, I have a few, one of them being a restricted trader is a profitable trader. I know that I have restrictions, and the restrictions I've chosen are there to serve me. They're not they're not to give me problems. They're there to enhance my trading. So what are the restrictions you use in your trading? You've mentioned time, you've cut out hours of the day. What kind of restrictions have you put in your trading system that are there to serve you? And what are those non-negotiable ones that you'll never leave? You'll always use these restrictions.
I always trade in that time window. So first 2 hours of New York Open, through New York Open. If I was to trade London, then I have a specific trading system just for London where I trade the first 1 hour, 2 hour of London Open. So, when prices move, taking liquidity, moving maybe an Asia high inducement, and usually London session, I would just go for a 1-to-1. Or just try to get, when I see a move happen, like 2-3 candles, I'm out. Because I know London likes to,
It's a quick impulse to Asia high to low, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like you don't prefer London session, you prefer New York.
Yeah. Lately, no, I don't really trade.
I'm the opposite, actually. I don't like New York session. I prefer London.
Just because I want to focus more on higher time frame plays. And London for me is just a quick move. It's just something to start the day off. It's not the move for the day. So if I was to trade London, I would just go in and out, try to get whatever I can and have the higher win rate.
What is your average, let's say the TP that you take, whatever the risk reward is, but the TP that you take, usually how many points is that or pips is that on
like
EU?
10, 15 max.
Okay, it's not a huge push. You're actually going for the session volatility.
The session range. Yeah.
Okay, so you're in and out within the same day, probably the same hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you find, because you mentioned Asia range, and it sounds like you're entering the markets on key liquidity moments, opens of sessions where volatility of that session kicks in, which I'm in a line with, my hours are the same. When it comes to framing, and when I choose London or New York, the point of interest is there, and whether it arrives in London or New York is obviously out of our control. So I obviously prefer it to be in a point of interest. But what I prefer about London session is because I have the reference of Asia range, liquidity. I kind of get an idea of, okay, this was the first liquidity grab. If it aligns with anything, I know the next liquidity zone, as you said, objective to objective. But when I get to New York, I find Asia high and low is probably already taken. So I've lost that reference. So now I have to go with higher time frame or the move of the day as opposed to the London session.
Exactly.
And I also noticed that if I enter on a New York open, let's say, or the second hour of New York I slightly prefer, let's say I enter there, by the time in 2 hours the volatility of the day slows down. London closes, New York starts to taper off, and if my objective is, let's say, 30 pips, I usually goes into the next day, my final TP. Whereas in London, it's very rarely I hold a trade over the night. Those are the reasons I don't like New York as much as London. What are the reasons you don't like London with this in mind and maybe prefer New York? If the higher time frame is
because
not a
London,
factor.
when it gives a move, it usually retraces right after, so you can catch the continuation in New York. And one of the best setups in London, I think it's like you have the Frankfurt high next to the Asia high. London just tweaks it, gives a nice lower time frame confirmation. That was what I used to trade, like 1 minute confirmation, the way you trade. And that was a very good setup, very clean also, because it gives you at least a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 to go break even if you have a smaller stop loss. But I just prefer New York session now. Just want to enter higher time frame, wait for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, have the higher time frame move, just enter, have a bigger stop loss, don't have to watch the markets, be very active. Because I'm usually an emotional person. I'm also quite young, so I'm turning 25. And I have to remove that emotion from trading.